Not real sure exactly how we will bounce, but what I do know is this. This year, let me put it this way. As believers, this is not the year for you to say, Lord, what can you do for me? This is the year for believers to stand up and say, Lord, what can I do for you? What would you like for me to do for you? And let me tell you what he's going to tell you. Spend time with me. That's all. That's all he's going to tell you. Because I truly believe that this is the year of the great restart for the church. I believe firmly that the year of 2020, did y'all see that? Fancy glasses, Joe. Everyone was thinking that the year of 2020 was going to be the year of perfect vision and the church was going to see perfectly what God was doing. Folks, we will never see perfectly what God is doing. Ever. Scripture says we see in part and we speak in part. There is a reason why he doesn't show us everything that he's doing. He even tells us in the scripture, if I told you, you wouldn't believe it. The thing about 2020 was that, how many of you were around back whenever, I think it was early in or late 2019, where the Lord, it was within the school, was dropping Revelation 2 over and over and over again. You have fallen from, you have fallen from, you have fallen from the heights of which you first came. The point of 2020 was that God was doing a massive eye surgery within the church. He was revealing what is blocking the church from being able to look at him. If you really look back at the last year that we had, he systematically started stripping every single thing that people depend upon. I mean, it was everything. From church itself, to entertainment, to jobs, to schools. I mean, it was one at a time that he was just removing these things that have become idols in our life, that we've said, Lord, we give you the piece of our life that you fit into, but we have these other things as well. And he's saying, you better watch what I'm doing and see what I'm doing and hear what I'm saying to know that what I'm after is not a piece of you. What I'm after is all of you. Because the only way for you to live for me is to see me, and you can't see me until I have all of you. Is that not what Jeremiah just said? You will find me when you look for me with all of your heart. So if I go into the secret place and I take with me an agenda, what I'm doing is saying, Lord, I'm coming to you so that you can give me this. And we failed to recognize the fact that what he has already given us trumps anything we could ever ask for. Are you with me? If in him all things consist and he holds everything together by the power of his word, then he is everything. I mean, you've heard me say this a lot, but it hasn't sunk in yet. The fact that when you have him, you have everything. Like, you can't have more than everything. And you say, well, I don't feel like I've substituted for Jesus. I feel like I've just added. Well, if you try to add to Jesus, it's no longer Jesus. You can't add to him because he's already everything. For you to try to add something to who he is for you to say, I'm going to make you in my image, instead of saying, Lord, I am created in your image. Why that takes place is because we think that our issues, that our circumstances, we think that somehow we have to control them, and we stop walking in faith, we start walking in fear. Let me put it this way. There was a time, maybe whenever you first... Okay. How many of you can remember a time in your life where you felt closer to Jesus than you do right now? See, we do this where His desire is for us to do this. And the reason we fall away from the presence is because we start taking our lives into our own hands instead of going to Him saying, it's all in your hands. Does Jesus not say, the sparrows have a place to lay their head, how much more do I love you? Right? Now, I'm not beating this thing to make you get beaten down. I'm beating this thing so that you recognize how easy it is for us as humans to lose focus, to lose gaze, to lose adoration, to lose first love fire for Him because of everything else we allow to creep into our life. And a lot of them by necessity. Work is a necessity, right? Family is a necessity. I'm not saying these things aren't important. What I'm saying is it is so easy, backdoor attack of the devil, to convince you that that is at an equal level with Jesus. And he'll do it backdoor. Something that jumped at me today in Matthew 26. Why don't you jump there really quickly? Because what I hope to do tonight is really just pierce your heart with the reality that the Bible is only speaking of Jesus, but it's also speaking to us that the only thing needed is to look at Him. The only thing He asks of us is to look at Him, is to behold Him. Because in my beholding will follow my behavior. We've been taught, how many of you grew up in the church? Okay, then you'll be with me. We were taught growing up that our behavior showed who we believed in. Don't do this, you can do this, stay away from this, you're allowed to do this, and it was this behavior thing. Not that behavior is a bad thing. Behavior is something that shows fruit. How we interact with people, how we behave is a fruit. But it is a fruit. It is a byproduct of something. And the byproduct of the something is the beholding. I will do the things that I stare at the most. You with me? I will become what I allow to come into my life. So if it's not behavior unto, it's beholding unto behavior. If I behold Him, my behavior will fall in line with what He wants. Right? This is why Jesus said, I do nothing unless I first see the Father do it. You with me? Oftentimes, Jesus would say, He would say things like this. Those who are weary or heavy laden, come to me. Come to me, which means it is their responsibility to put forth the action to actually see Him and go to Him. It's a beholding thing. Right? Now watch this. You may have never seen this before. If you have, make me feel good and pretend like you haven't. All right? I'm at the story of Jesus praying in the garden. And I'm gonna be at verse. Oh man. Okay, let's go all the way to 36. I was starting at 40, but it's just really good. So let's go to 36. Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and said to the disciples, sit here while I go and pray over there. And He took with Him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, And he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. Then he said to them, "My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me." When he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." Then he came back to the disciples and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "What? Could you not watch with me for even an hour?" That word watch, I can't say the Greek word. It's not a hard one. I just can't remember it. It's a Greek word, starts with the letter G. Look it up. But what it means is to study, to fix your eyes on, to be transfixed by. It means to be completely focused on. He says, "You could not even fix your eyes on me for an hour?" What this opened up to me is something very, very simple, but very, very huge. Jesus, in his most vulnerable moment with the Lord, took disciples to say, "I'm about to show you how to overcome feeling weak in your flesh and being strengthened in your spirit. But you got to behold me. You've got to watch me. I'm going to go through this. Not because I don't know what's coming. I'm going through this, one, because my flesh is tired. But two, I'm bringing you with me. Because if you'll watch me, you'll be able to learn how to do this with me when it comes to you." See, we read the scriptures and we think that in the scriptures we find the life in the book. But how easy it is to cheat on God with things he gave us. This is not your salvation. This is not your Lord. This is a book. This is supposed to reveal him in our life, and we are to see him written in the scriptures so that through our circumstances and situations, we actually have behold him and how he went through it and how he talked about it and how he handled it so we can handle it. But we have to behold him, not behold a letter that was written. Behold the one it was written about. No one else ever has been tempted at all points, yet without sin. No one else ever has gone through what Jesus went through. No one else ever has paid the price that he paid. And he did it for one reason. Behold me. Behold me. You with me? With the story of Mary at Bethany that we talked about a few weeks ago, there was a phrase that happened. It was in the story of Matthew where it talks about her. But she pours out the oil upon his feet, and the room goes nuts because she poured out this extravagant fragrance on him. And Martha's, pitching a fit because she's over here making a sandwich and Mary's not helping her. And she's like, "Why don't you tell her to help me, Jesus?" And Jesus says, "Leave her alone, for she has chosen the one thing that matters." So if Jesus says that Mary has chosen the one thing that matters, is there anything else that matters? The word "one thing" means there's no other thing. Just the one thing that matters. You say, "Well, how do we know that that's the one thing that matters?" Because it's literally the only thing happening in heaven. There is an entire horde of angels and people and creatures that are bananas to even think about, and wonders. I mean, wrap your mind around this. There are things happening in heaven around the throne that our minds cannot comprehend. They are bananas. So much so that John wrote about them saying, I can't, it's messing me up. And yet everyone is more focused on a lamb that was slain than the stuff happening. Translated, that is more important than the stuff. I think it's interesting that, within what we've seen over the last few years, I think it's interesting that the year 2020 brought a halt, virtually a halt, to these wild services with these massive healings and these speakings in tongues and these manifestations of things. I mean, you would think like that's the revival, right? Like the revival's coming because we're seeing this stuff. But all of a sudden it halted. Why? Because beholding miracles is not beholding the Lamb.
Right.
Beholding gifting is not beholding the Lamb. Beholding agenda is not beholding the Lamb. What we're going to get into starting next week is beholding the Lamb within our worship. Purity in worship. There's a reason tonight why I kept telling you guys, stand up, put your hands in the air, fix your eyes on Him, because we're being robbed by our circumstances and we're not stepping into the glory that is the victory of Jesus in our life. You understand, you are more than a conqueror because you have Him. More than an over-winner is the way that CJ used to teach it. You win more than you can. How do you win more than there's even opportunity? But how many times do we look at our situation and circumstances and say, I don't know how I'm going to get through this? Well, that's the thing. You can't. He will. You with me? Are you hearing what I'm saying? You can't. This is the beautiful part about it. You can't want Him without Him. You can't serve Him without Him. You can't celebrate Him without Him. You can't love Him without Him. You can't even recognize Him without Him. And though it may seem like He's far away at times, He's always one look away. Though you may feel like you are so far removed from His presence, it's always one glance away. When Jesus came back from the grave, He met with the disciples at one point, and remember you had Peter who denied Him 3 times. And He came back from the grave and He had a conversation with Peter, and He asked him 3 questions. Do you love me? Question number 2 was, do you love me? Question number 3 was, do you love me? Why did He ask it 3 times? Yes, theologically, we hear He asked him 3 times because He redeemed him 3 times from the 3 times he denied Him while He was being crucified. But what if it's even simpler than that? What if Jesus just genuinely loved to hear from His best friend, yeah, I really do love you. What if the thing that moves Jesus' heart most is not what you do for Him, but just the fact that you love Him? What if the thing that moves His heart the most is not the amount of services you attend or the amount of people you talk to or any of that stuff? What if the thing that moves His heart the most is that you would make Him the priority of your life? And you would tell Him how much you love Him, and you would look at Him, and you would behold Him. What if that's all that matters? Spoiler alert, it's all that matters. Reinhard Bonnke used to say, if you will minister to His heart, He will move His hand, and you won't have to do anything. Because you can't do it anyway. I've had people over the last few years, because of the amount of opportunities that I've had to pray over people and see healings come about, I've had people say, how do you do that? Like, what's the secret? And I've honestly, this is all I've had to say. I don't know the secret. I just know that I look at Him. I just let Him do it. I do what He tells me to do. Most of the time it doesn't make sense to me. I just do what He tells me to do, and I have faith that He will do it. I look at Him. Me looking at Him is a fulfillment of the Song of Solomon that says, with one glance of your worshiping eye. Here's the glance of the worshiping eye. It's not about me. It's all about you. I lay down me. I lay down my fame. I lay down my recognition. I lay down my will, not my will, but yours be done. I don't know how to do this. You do. So I'll stare at you. I'll love on you. You'll do this thing, and then I'll point them back to you because you're the one that gets the glory. I minister to His heart. He moves His hand. I don't have to do anything. It's beautiful. Oral Roberts. How many of you have ever heard of Oral Roberts University? Oral Roberts, amazing man of God. His university has produced just countless number of revivalists that are powerful in the Word and indeed. And what Oral Roberts used to do often is he would take a stool and he would leave it on the stage, and before he would minister, he would stare at the stool, and oftentimes he would then grab the stool, sit down, and just watch people get healed. Just like this. And he would just watch. And people all over the room would just start getting healed. And Oral Roberts was asked, he said, towards the end of his life, they asked him, is there anything you would do different? And he said, no, I pretty much spent as much time with Jesus on this side of heaven as I could, so I'm good. And they asked him things about his stool. And he said, why would I get in God's way? And he said one time he was about to minister, and the Lord said, one of the first times he said, he was about to minister, and the Lord said, grab a stool, sit down, don't do anything, just watch. And he said, Lord, that's not how we minister. He goes, okay, Oral, you can stand up and do things, and I'll sit down, or you can sit down and I'll do things. Which one would you rather have? Oh, so he sat down. And what he noticed was, when we minister to the heart, what does that mean? When I yield myself to your lordship, then you can move. How do you do that? Mm-hmm. You have to behold Him. What do I mean? You have to make Him primary, number one, nothing else matters, love of your life. You say, well, that's not fair to my husband or my wife. I promise you, ask Caitlin, I love her best when I fix my eyes on Him most. I work best when I'm working unto Him. I love my kids best when I am connected and fixed on Him. The scripture says your light is the lamp unto your body. And if it's fixed on the light, it is full of light. And if it's full of light, where can darkness reside? Jesus is the light of the world. What it's saying is when you fix your eyes on me, watch, your beholding will bring forth the behavior that shows that you are a Christian. Your beholding will bring a behavior that says, I love Jesus, therefore my behavior is, I love you too. Are you with me now on why the world is in the way that it is? Because the church has taken its eyes off of Jesus and has put it on stuff, and we are no longer filled with light. We are filled with glimpses. And at every conflict that arises, we start passing judgments and we start slamming people and we freak out over what's happening in Washington, and we freak. I was so proud of, I don't know if you know Robbie Dawkins, but Robbie Dawkins is a guy that gets a lot of flack because he speaks out about things that are going on that are not kingdom. Not so much about governmental stuff, though he does have his opinions, but he speaks out and he gets a lot of flack for it. A lot of people get flack for it. But he put a video up yesterday of him right in the midst of the riots, going up to Antifa people and loving on them. That's a hard thing to do when you're not beholding the Lamb. Because it's easy for us to see Antifa, it's easy for us to see the BLM, it's easy for us to see the other side of the aisle people that are coming against and saying, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, and we're looking down upon people. And here's the problem. When I'm looking down upon people, I'm not looking up to the Lamb. When I'm looking down, I'm no longer looking up. And it's the upward call of Christ. The upward call of Christ keeps me from the downward crap of the world. So that I can stay fixed on the light, full of light, live like light, and actually see people come to the light. If you are a light bulb, you're not shining on you. You are shining for what people can see. But how can I shine on something that I'm not looking at? Are you with me? Mm-hmm. Revelation 2 says, to the church of Ephesus, you have done the things. You've done the stuff. And it's stuff that I like. But I have one thing against you. Okay, one thing I have against you. With Mary at Bethany, this is the one thing that matters. What were both of them? The context of Revelation 2 is, you stopped looking at me. You fell out of love with me. We'll look at that in Hosea in a few weeks. It all goes together. Revelation 2 is pointing back to Hosea 1 and 2, where the wife stopped looking at the husband, fell out of first love, and became a harlot. The church at Ephesus stopped looking at the husband, started looking at the other stuff, fell out of first love, and became a harlot. Here's the one thing I have against you. You have fallen from the first love fire, the heights. You have fallen from the place where your gaze was on me, and I'm removing your lampstand. But then it goes to say, for those who will repent and come back, I will restore the fire on your lampstand. It's just one gaze away. One gaze away. You with me? Mm-hmm. Why do we lose our joy? Why do we get bound? Why do we fall into traps? Why do we become depressed or why is anxiety not conquered? Why is sin so easy to fall back into? Why is this stuff the case? Romans says that if sin is if sin is a habit, sin is a master. Mm. We're supposed to be set free from sin. But Romans tells us that if sin is something that you keep going back to, then you are still a slave to it. Why is that the case? Could it be as simple as because we stopped looking at it? Because we haven't gotten up in the morning, laid ourselves down, saying, I fix my eyes on you, and we actually go about it. Can I pick on you for a minute, CJ?
Absolutely.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Hey, thanks.
You said something today, while we were having dinner, that I want to bring out. Because you started crying when you said it. You said, I got up today, and Jesus had birthday breakfast with me. and it set the tone for your whole day. And you said today was one of the best days that you've had in your life. You said it was the best birthday you've had. Do you think that would have still been the case if you didn't start your day today having breakfast with Jesus?
Crap, no.
Why? Why?
Set the tone, man.
Set the tone. You see him the rest of the day. When Jesus got up before the disciples early in the morning, he got up, would climb mountains to be with his Father. Jesus even needed the time to behold his Father. And it set the tone for the rest of his day. He tells us, get up, give it to me, and let me set the tone for your day. You will make time for the thing that matters most to you. And the thing that matters most to you will be the thing you look at the most. For some of us, Facebook is more important than Jesus. Hard word, I know. Sorry. True. I will know this fast what is most important to you just by watching you for one day. Because you will reveal it by what you give your attention to. For some of us, this one sucks. For some of us, this book is more important than a relationship with the one it's about. Because we'll think that doing our 10-minute devotional qualifies us in relationship, but then we put the book down and we focus on everything else but what we actually read. Yeah? Okay, so here's what I'm saying. Why don't we just stop trying so hard? See, I know what I'm doing. I primed it up and then I stuck you with Novocaine and just let you go numb for a second. Why don't we just stop trying so hard and just start falling into him? Stop saying, well, I have to read through the entire Bible. Stop it. No, you don't. Because you can read through the entire Bible 6 times and get absolutely nothing from it. You'll get head knowledge. But Jesus told the Pharisees, you think you know it, but it pointed to me and I'm staring at you and you don't even know it's me. John 5, look it up. It's exactly what he said. You think this gives you life, but the one who is life is standing in front of you and you don't know me. He tells the people that come to the gates that say, didn't we do all this stuff in your name? Prophesy in your name? Depart. I never knew you. We had no relationship. So what if we just stop trying so hard, stop doing all of the things that people have told us we have to do, and what if we just started treating Jesus like we would our spouse? What if we started actually waking up in the morning and giving Jesus a kiss the way that you would give your spouse one? I'm serious. What if instead... What if... Okay, I'm going to do it. Guys, what if instead of taking this to the throne room for 30 minutes, doing this until our legs go numb and we realize, oh dang it. I mean, come on guys, like we know that is a place where we are like, it's a break. Okay? What if instead of taking this in there, we just went in there with the mindset of, I'm just going to talk to you. I'm going to spend this time, as weird as it is, to talk to you.
Let it go.
I promise you'll get some heavy downloads. Some of it.
More trashed out.
Yeah.
turn into that. Jesus.
Okay. Is it hot? It's freaking hot in here!
It's freezing. It's so cold in here.
You get my point? My point is this. My point is this. Throughout our day, we tend to schedule time with Him instead of beholding Him to where He is our schedule. You know what you don't have to get me to do? Schedule time to be with Caitlin. You will never have to get me to schedule time to be with my kids. I make time for them because they are important to me. And what I have found in my life is that when I start making Jesus a side issue, it becomes my primary issue. The moment I make Jesus less than the most important thing, my relationship with Him starts to fade. Because I start cheating on Him with all this other stuff. And it could be good stuff. It could be ministry stuff. But if I'm not doing ministry unto Him, it's not ministry. You say, my life is not one that has all this time, and I don't get to just do ministry all the time, and I don't get to just spend time in the Word. Who are you ministering to anyway? Who are you living for anyway? If you're living for people, you will constantly be disappointed. If you think ministry is unto people, you are going to be constantly disappointed. Our life is one of living unto one, beholding one, a behavior unto one, which means you can be changing diapers and minister to His heart. Which means you can be in the midst of changing a blowout diaper and the presence lands so heavy in the room that you can't even breathe, which is a blessing. I'm not kidding you. He is better than we know. He is better than we've experienced. He's waiting to pour it out on a people that are fixed on Him. He's looking. This great restart of 2021 is for the people who fix their gaze on Him and behold the Lamb and live in this realm of purity so they can ascend the hill of the Lord and bring back the message of heaven to a lost and dying world. This move, I believe we are in the final hour. Now that can be a long time, but I believe we are in the last great revival movement. You say, well, whoever is listening may say, well, that's not going to happen if so-and-so gets in office. Folks, the biggest movements of the church happen with the biggest tyrants running the countries. The chosen people were released out of this bondage of Pharaoh by the greatest pastor of a movement, Moses. Can you imagine being Pastor Moses? Moses takes 3 million people out of slavery into the desert. You want to know what kept him from going into the promised land? Complaining. It's really all that it was. The scripture says it was an 11-day journey. It also tells us through context that God only desired for them to be in the wilderness for 1 year. But it was 40 years in the wilderness because they kept complaining about circumstances instead of rejoicing in the victorious work of God. So Moses, the greatest pastor of a body of people ever, 3 million people, only 2 fulfilled the destiny. It's not your pastor's fault for you not doing what you're told. Sorry. It's not your pastor's responsibility to keep you focused on the land. It's your responsibility. It's not your pastor's responsibility to hold your hand and say, do as I do. It's your pastor's responsibility to say, here is the lamb, do as he does. And then you take it and steward it and stop being pottered by the world, but be pottered by the one who overcame the world and start living this thing victoriously. What if you actually stepped into the reality that you are no longer a slave, but you are entering into the promised land filled with milk and honey? What is that? What is the milk and honey? Jesus. What if it was as easy as, Lord, I thank you for what you've brought me out of, and I celebrate you because of who you are, the end. From that place, you live your life. Does it not say that he builds a throne upon your praises? Not your complaining. Not my complaining. There are plenty of things to complain about, but there's far more to celebrate about. If nothing else, the fact that you're not going to hell when you die. That's a pretty good one.
I like that.
Yeah?
Probably my favorite.
So here's the deal. And I'm going to close it up here. This group of people, and whoever joins us in the future, this is what we are going to commit to and start becoming. We're going to become a people that can work. Did you hear that, or did the trash can get in the way? I heard you. That was the devil right there. No, really, it was just secret. Hello. Here's what this group of, as long as this ministry is under this leadership, this is what this ministry is going to be. A people who behold the Lamb and nothing else. We are not looking for your gifts. I'm not looking for your talent. I'm not looking for your anything you can offer me. I'm looking at one thing. Are you looking at him? If you're looking at him, I promise you, watch this. If you're looking at him, you will know when he walks in the room and you'll be floored by it. And all of a sudden, everything that you brought in with you will disappear because the one in whom you say you love has just walked in, and it will take preeminence to anything else. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it in my own life. We cannot be a people that get swayed by every circumstance. We can't be a people that allow other people to dictate who we are. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. Song of Solomon, let me go there, and then I'll be done. Song of Solomon, you can go with me. Chapter 3. I don't think that's right. Ooh, when I find it, it's going to be really good, I promise. I found it. Chapter 3, verse 4. Who's there? Read it to me. 3 verse 4.
Scarcely had I passed by them when I found the one I love. I held him and would not let him go until I had brought him to the house of my mother and into the chamber of her who conceived me.
Mm.
Do you want me to keep going?
No. Scarcely had I passed by them when I found the one I love. I held him and would not let him go. I found him, I realized who he was, and I would not. Translation would be, I refused to let him go. Let us be that kind of a people towards Jesus. A people that find him and refuse to let him go. Here's what that will require of you. A life of purity. That's what we're going to get into starting next week. From now till then, every day, throughout the day, when you go to bed at night, all you're responsible for doing is saying, Lord, I look to you.